it's literally just to mobilize their voter base to get people to care about conservative issues.
Overall, it's mostly about taxes and regulations, and it's not about like trans kids wanting to join the soccer team that matches the gender.
They care a lot more about pipelines than they do about trans kids' mental health.
And welcome back. You're listening to Hysteria, the podcast that's Barbie in the streets and Oppenheimer in the sheets. What does that mean?
You know, I didn't write that because I do not know what Oppenheimer is.
It's the movie about the atomic bomb. That it's opening the same day as Barbie. And I saw
thinking?
I feel as though that was a poor choice by the studio behind Oppenheimer because Barbie is just going to run away with that weekend. Also, theaters are going to be hilarious. If those movies get let out at the same time, you're going to be able to tell by people's faces which one they saw.
100%. I'm hoping for some call and response during the Barbie movie.
I hope it's as good as I want it to be. I've heard it's a real fun ride. But we're not going to talk about Barbie today as much as I would like to. We're probably going to do a whole episode about it later this summer. We're going to talk about, so we're wrapping up Pride Month, right? And one thing that I think is missing from a lot of the Pride content is context about why we are where we are when it comes to anti-trans bills. We know that these red state, slack-jawed, jowly morons are not coming up with this independently by themselves. We know that with anything that looks like a coordinated political attack, there is somebody behind it. There are people behind it. There's a history behind it. And I really think it's important for us to understand the entire anti-bodily autonomy, anti-women, anti-anything that combats the American dreamification, cis-normative, white Christian nuclear family shtick. We want to get into why we are where we're at. These bills didn't come out of nowhere. They're planned. And so we're going to bring in, for their Hysteria debut, somebody who has done a lot of work and research to give us some context about how we got here. Normally, they're working behind the scenes on the pod. This time, we wanted to get them in front of the mic. Fiona Pestana, welcome to Hysteria.
Thank you so much for having me. Hey, what's up? I have to say, I will be so seated for Barbie Heimer. I cannot wait for the double feature. It's gonna be amazing. I also heard Oppenheimer is 3 hours, which is crazy to watch a 3-hour war movie and then, relax with some Barbie time.
It was called Saving Private Ryan, and it should only be done once.
No, exactly.
Yeah, that's which one would you see first?
I think that starting with Oppenheimer and ending with Barbie is the move.
The release. It's like you get the detox of the trauma.
Exactly, yeah. And Barbie is such like a party time. Like, you want to be left with a good taste in your mouth. Oppenheimer is going to be very sad, I feel. So
don't tell me how it ends. No spoilers.
No spoilers.
Okay, so Fiona, let's get into it. Have there been more laws targeting trans and gender nonconforming people in the last few years, or am I just imagining it?
No, you are not just imagining it. Yeah, it's ridiculous. There is a website called the Trans Legislation Tracker that is keeping track of everything that's been going on across the states. And there are 28 national anti-trans bills going on. But in terms of the state level, there have been 83 anti-trans bills that have already passed on the state level. And that compared to 2022, and we're only, mind you, halfway through 2023, there were only 26 anti-trans bills that passed last year. So it is rampant right now. I feel like Republicans are definitely using the off year to really have these bills coming in full force so that they can use it as some sort of like campaign tactic going into the 2024 election.
Mm-hmm.
Fee, why are these laws coming up?
Republicans needed a wedge issue to rally their base of voters, and they've been trying to use like anti-transness as a way to do that for a while. It was just really unpopular. They were bringing it about in not the best ways. Like they started with bathroom bans. That wasn't super popular. Trump had the like military ban not allowing trans people there. People weren't super mobilized by that. But then I feel like the media started talking about anti-trans bills and trans legislation and stuff. And there were moderate Democrats who were saying, you know, this angle is electoral poison. It's not going to work. And then at the same time, conservative activists, people like Jordan Peterson, were getting really rallied up and riled up about this whole topic. They talk about it all the time. If you go on Joe Rogan's podcast, you hear it constantly. Right-wing media is constantly talking about this. So the combination of moderate Democrats saying trans rights are electoral poison and conservative activists really rallying behind this, it sort of created this like fake media storm, and really made people pay attention to it and care about it a lot more than they would have otherwise. It wasn't really something that was on people's mind, and now it is an example of like the moral standing point for Republicans right now. Just white Christian nationalism is really rooted in, you know, white supremacy and the standard nuclear family. And conservatives, you know, want to maintain that American norm. And this is a good way to get people scared of that going away for a lot of different reasons. So, yeah, then the rhetoric started to work. People were paying attention more, and now people who probably wouldn't have even cared are really obsessed with trans people for no good reason, even though it's like not impacting them at all.
If the nuclear family, cis-het nuclear family thing was so natural, then why would they need so many laws to like enforce it?
Literally,
you know, like I mean, whatever. It doesn't. None of this makes sense.
No, it doesn't. And the GOP like criticizes people within the party who are being too like liberal on the topic. If people aren't hating trans people enough, they will kind of be ostracized in Republican communities. And therefore, like GOP candidates have learned that they kind of need to be on their version of the right side of history to be successful in their races or just get support from Republicans at all.
Yeah. It's interesting that you brought up the media kind of buying into like, okay, well, if people on the far right believe one thing and people in the middle don't, like, are a little bit hesitant about something, it's like that sort of artificial center we see all the time with issues that are like wedge issues, where people try, like, one view is patently extreme and one view is patently humane. And the media is like, well, we better find something that is in between those two things.
Yeah, highlight both positions.
Right, yeah. Even though, like, the both sides of the table argument is so stupid when it's talking about, like, oh, do these people deserve to live their life without, you know, severe governmental intervention, like affecting the way that people are treated at school, in healthcare. It's ridiculous.
Right. And one side is like, these people shouldn't exist. And the other side is like, leave them alone. And the centrists are like, is there a way for them to half exist?
Right.
Like, could we need to come up with a law.
Is there a third way? Is there a third way?
A secret third thing.
No labels. #, no labels.
Put trans people on an island. Honestly, that sounds really fun.
Okay, Fiona, nothing comes out of nowhere. Are there individuals and organizations like kind of beneath these laws and behind these laws, and who are they?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Alliance Defending Freedom is a very like Christian Republican legal organization that has been at work on these sorts of issues for ages. They were very anti-gay, very anti-abortion. They are some of the reason that Roe v. Wade fell last year. They were really rallying behind that and providing a lot of legal support there. So look at their track record and look at what they keep doing. They are definitely rallying behind anti-trans issues. Obviously, politicians that are in the news all the time, Ron DeSantis, Greg Abbott, Ted Cruz, those are just some of the people. Trump didn't honestly really care about trans people that much, and now he's hopped on the bandwagon. He's GOP's very anti now, just because that is a big like GOP far right like rallying cry. Matt Walsh, The Daily Wire, Libs of TikTok. There are a lot of people on the internet who have really been banding together on this. Even Elon Musk and Twitter. Just like this week, Elon Musk banned the word cis or cisgender, literally banned those words from the platform, which is ridiculous. Like, those aren't even political. It's just like a descriptor.
Also, a man who took over Twitter for free speech and he's banned a word that has no negative connotation.
Literally,
Cool.
like very
Cool.
not libertarian of you.
Right.
I don't understand, but it's part of the whole strategy of, if we let people say cis, that means like the opposite of that is trans, and we don't even want to acknowledge trans people's existence. So it's crazy. Yeah, Elon Musk literally retweeted Matt Walsh's documentary. It's just propaganda. It's ridiculous. It's called What is a Woman? And it's, trying to prove that these libs don't know even how to define what a woman is, and including trans people completely muddies the definition. And yeah, it's crazy. Those are some of the real heavy hitters of people who are pushing this forward.
And it sounds like some of this is getting people like money, like it's a way for organizations to raise money and candidates to raise money.
Totally.
And then other people, it seems like, are chasing clout. Like Libs of TikTok is chasing clout for this. And do you think it's one of those issues that, I mean, I feel like right now sometimes we see things really blow up and become massive issues that don't need to be discussed on such a wide level because people see that they can get more attention. Do you see that playing out in the way that trans issues are covered?
Yeah, absolutely. There's such a moral panic going on. I think, like I was saying earlier, like GOP candidates are kind of ostracized if they're not speaking out similarly and being just as anti-trans as other candidates. And I think that the language that they're using is really getting people in a fuss. The tactics that they use, which are the same that they used in the anti-gay movement, it's the same that they use in the anti-abortion movement. It's all about, look at what's happening to our kids. Parents are losing the right to raise their children how they want to. These pedophiles are grooming them. There's genital mutilation going on. Just like using that language really ramps it up and makes people really scared and just like plays into that fear. And then people can really capitalize on the clout that comes from this widespread media moral panic. Yeah, and then TERFs, that's like a whole other vocabulary that they use, like trying to reframe feminism. They say like trans men are victims of the patriarchy. They hate being a woman, so they turn into a man. Trans women are just men in dresses who, want to get closer to women. And that's like patriarchal forces at work. And then non-binary people, they're like, we're just not going to talk about that because that doesn't make any sense to us, which is so funny and silly.
Fee, talk a little bit more about how the extreme messaging that you were sort of starting to talk about gets laundered to the masses. Like, how do anti-trans people mask their agendas in faux concern for children? And specific, like for me, an issue that so many people are talking about but is almost affecting no one is like trans people in sports.
Trans people in sports is a ridiculous debate. Lance Armstrong just tweeted about how...
Lance Armstrong?
What was he thinking?
Sir.
What was he thinking weighing into any debate?
Oh, you're against an unfair advantage now, sir?
I know.
Oh, I'm sorry. Where are my injectables?
Oh,
Literally.
my God. Ugh.
How is it getting laundered to the masses? I mean, Twitter, with Elon allowing all of this, Fox News like platforming this, I think the Daily Wire, just like far right media is extremely strong. They're really like capitalizing off of this. They're going into schools, with book bans and all of that. That's like a really good way to rally up parents in conservative areas and get them to care about the issue. Yeah, like and using that crazy vocabulary and making it sound so insane, and that trans people are a threat, that they're scary and weird and bad, and brainwashing your children. Just like it's just propaganda to get people to vote for them. It's literally just to mobilize their voter base, to get people to care about conservative issues, because like as our society progresses and like trans people get more visible and more normalized, they're like, oh my God, well, we're going to capitalize on this in the opposite direction until people get bored. But yeah, really just like using the media and then going into schools and stuff. I feel like those are the biggest ways that they're trying to get the masses to pay attention. And also like stupid Supreme Court like decisions going on. Like there's a case that still has yet to be decided by the court about like this website maker who doesn't want to make like wedding websites for gay people. And
Colorado strikes again.
Stuff like that, like just introducing bullshit like that into the political and legal system that really gets it in front of people's faces and, starts to convince people to care about something that is really dumb.
Mm-hmm. It's so strange to me, like the Venn diagram of people who would make fun of someone for attending a WNBA game and who are furious that somebody who was not born and assigned female at birth may compete against WNBA players in some case.
Yeah.
Like that's a circle,
I
like,
love
so
when
true.
you go Venn diagram on us. I love it.
I need to
I
need to pry that out of my brain because I use it too much. But it's true. Like it just seems as though they don't care about women's sports. Like
No.
they don't care about women's.
They don't care
sports.
about women in sports. Period.
And it's just like so much more nuanced than the way that they paint it. Yeah, going back to women in sports, like, okay, when did these kids start transitioning?
Mm-hmm.
Did they go through puberty before? Like, they're not having nuanced conversations about like the realities of what's going on. Erin, something that you say a lot about anti-abortion stuff is like the people who are making these laws can't even find the vagina on a woman's body. You know what I mean? Like they don't even understand what it means to be trans, and they're making these laws about trans people assuming that they know better or how the processes go, and they just simply don't. Like just a flat ban on trans people in sports, it doesn't make sense. In fact, most of the trans and queer people I know have 2 left feet and are extremely unathletic. I feel like cis people might have an advantage. So yeah, they're silly. They don't know anything.
It also seems like the American Conservative Party right now is this kind of unholy alliance between a small number of super wealthy people who all they want to do is remove regulations that keep them from making even more money and taxes that keep them from keeping all of that money.
Yeah.
But in order to get people to vote for their candidates, they have to make them afraid of something that really like that. This is the new thing. This is the new thing that they're like, we're going to scare you so much about this one thing that you're going to vote against your own financial interests, environmental interests,
Literally.
health interests.
Literally, all of our other policies are so bad for you. We know you're not going to vote for us. Let's try this one out.
If we scream
Exactly.
about this, maybe you'll miss out on the fact that we're like whispering about like poisoning the earth and making public school a thing of the past and making it even more difficult to raise a family in this country by making it even more expensive and eliminating, any sort of social safety net and enabling companies to just completely drain all of your resources as you approach end-of-life care. Like, these are the things that they're actually, like, I think if you just looked at, I'm going into graphs again, Alyssa.
I love it. Do
but
it.
I think if you looked at a pie chart of
Ooh,
what,
sexy.
like, pie chart of like, okay, this is what Republicans actually do when they're elected if they are kind of given, their own, left to their own devices, the amount of impact they're having, like overall, it's mostly about taxes and
Yeah.
regulations, and it's not about like trans kids wanting to join the soccer team that matches the gender
They care a lot more about pipelines than they do about trans kids' mental health.
Totally.
Yes.
I mean, they're not scared of wokeism. They're scared of like irrelevance.
Mm-hmm.
And they know that their policies aren't popular. So they're trying to manufacture a way to try to be popular in some way. But like the hope comes from, I mean, look at how many states are reacting to Roe v. Wade and saying, well, actually, abortion is something that we all want and we want to be protecting. Look at how, I mean, gay marriage is a thing. I feel like gay people aren't as big of a deal as they used to be. And I cannot wait for trans people to kind of get to the same place. Like eventually this moral panic that the left or the right is fueling, eventually people are going to get bored of it, and more people are going to know trans people, have trans family members, and be like, oh, actually, these are just normal people that we want to let be. As we do with everybody else. So I look forward to when people are bored of this and trans people can just exist, and it's not like a debate about whether they do or not.
Yeah. I mean, in the meantime, these laws really do affect people in a dire way.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah, families in Florida considering moving, Texas, same deal. There's families all over the country that now are faced with this idea that they can't get care for their children. And so, of course, you know, it's really important that people are fighting back. So can you give us a little outline of organizations that are fighting against this tide and how they're helping?
Well, first, I'm trans. Shout out to the Gender Confirmation Center in San Francisco. They are providing gender affirming care for people. I'm sure that a lot of people from states like that have definitely flocked over to them. They're awesome. I can attest that gender affirming healthcare did so much for me and made me so much happier in my everyday life. It's like it's ridiculous that, you know, people in the GOP get plastic surgery. What's the difference? That is literally gender affirming care. And you cannot tell me otherwise. Other people who are fighting back, I want to shout out people who are doing good, like in the political system. Maury Turner, Zoe Zephyr. We had Becca Ballant on recently, and one of the things that she talked about was how this is something that she's actively fighting. And I know that there are other Dems across the states who are doing the same thing, doing their best in these red places. Some orgs that are awesome, obviously the ACLU. There's a lawyer from there called Chase Strangio. He is awesome. Definitely would suggest following him on socials and stuff. He talks about this stuff very poignantly all the time and is actively representing people who are in battles that have to do with trans rights and that sort of thing. The Human Rights Center, Media Matters for America, Translash is an amazing organization. They have a podcast called the AntiTrans Hate Machine. That's a really good resource for learning about the history of all this. They talk about, you know, Anita Bryant and the anti-gay movement and how that compares, and just in general, like the way the far right launders all of this.
And through Florida with Anita, it's always through Florida.
I know. What is it? What is it about Florida? They put something in the oranges.
I mean, Anita Bryant they boycotted her, didn't they?
Yeah.
Tropicana?
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, she was a orange spokesperson, which, yeah, another person that I would definitely recommend, someone who actively fights back and helps out a lot with kind of, she has a lot of experience converting people from like far right internet rabbit holes to believing that trans people exist and shouldn't be, banished from the planet. That's ContraPoints. She's amazing. Her most recent video on YouTube is all about J.K. Rowling, a very famous transphobe. Don't fight me on that. But yeah, amazing trans journalists out there as well. Our very own Tre'vell Anderson, who is on WAD, does amazing stuff there. They just wrote a book about like trans representation in the media and in film and TV especially. And then other trans activists are really incredible. There are so many people who are so poignant and speaking about this online all the time. Alok Menon is amazing, non-binary icon. And Elliot Page, for instance, I just finished reading his book. It's a really wonderful personal story about growing up with these thoughts and just like the different stories of how he got closer and closer to himself and like how glimpses of his truth just were carried with him throughout his life, and he eventually was able to like really manifest that truth and step into his fullness after years of like repression and self-hatred. And like it's so devastating. Like, why? I don't understand why Republicans want people to hate themselves so much just for their financial benefit. It is sick and twisted. But yeah, those are some really amazing people who are doing good work around this.
Amazing. And we will put those in the show notes. And I know that you have them written down because that's how Fiona does.
True.
Fiona Pestana, thank you so much for joining us. This was really illuminating. And thanks for all the work you did on this segment.
Oh my God.
Totally.
Yeah.